Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Erik and Derek with Tiger Football Talk. We're just two Clemson grads who love to talk about college football and looking for any excuse to talk about it a little bit more. We're here to do the post game with the wild and crazy Boston College Clemson game. So, Erik, break it down for me a little bit. What are your initial thoughts from that crazy game?
Oh, man. Well, right after we finished filming a recording last week of the pregame, news breaks out that Trevor has been diagnosed with COVID and will not be playing in the game. And I called you right after that, and I said, you know what? DJ Uiagalelei is going to step in, and I'm going to stick to my prediction of 47-10. I felt like he could step in and run that offense. I felt like Brent Venables was going to get the defense ready for this game. Everyone was going to step up, knowing that Trevor was out. And let's just say that's not really how it went down. Obviously, we squeaked out a win, 34-28. It was 28-13 at half. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, DJ ran the offense well. I mean, I think Tony Elliott had a good game plan going in, getting him to settle in, a lot of short passes, a lot of running the ball early, getting ETN involved. I think that was key. I mean, that ETN fumble that was returned for 97 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that's a 14-point swing. It would have been 14-14 at that moment in the game. You know, we were doing just fine. Like I predicted, Brent Venables came out in a 4-3 defense, and we just weren't getting pressure on the QB at all. I mean, Phil Jurkovich was crushing us. And Brent obviously adjusted and went to a 3-3-5 later in the game. But we had soft coverage, and we lost a lot of 50-50 balls early. But I lost some years off my life in this one.
What Dabo Swinney said after the game, this is an uncommon game for a couple of different reasons. One, it's not every week that you lose the number one quarterback in the league to coronavirus, with like only a couple of days notice. It's not every day that you come back from 18 points down. Like, there was a lot of things about this game where it's like, it just felt like it had that upset mentality towards it. But it was just a crazy game. We talked about it last week that, Phil Jurkovich, he's a baller. He can throw it out. And he came out in the first half. And my question wasn't really about Phil. It was, I know about Zay Flowers, I know Hunter Long. Like, what other weapons does he have? And he was on point. He was just chucking the ball all over the place, and it was precision. So it was crazy how hot they started. It seemed like they had all the momentum in the world to go with. Like, you're right about that fumble. That fumble, honestly, you know what it reminded me of? And that was a bad omen. West Virginia. When we played West Virginia and got our butts spanked 70 whatever to whatever, the game was close in the second quarter. We were going in for a touchdown, I think, to take the lead. This is like Orange Bowl, like 2012 or something.
Yeah.
And we were going into 2010, something like that. We were going to take the lead. We fumble it, and they take it back, 99 yards to the opposite direction, and we never recovered emotionally from a leadership standpoint. So I think it was great to see the fact that we won this game. We stuck in there from a leadership standpoint. Shows how much our program has grown since then. But, I mean, I feel like this game just had a little bit of everything. But, hey, we can't talk much longer without saying DJ and just saying El Cinco, I think was his name, or Big Cinco was his nickname in high school. He balled out.
He did ball out. And, I mean, last week I talked about this momentum deal in college football. It's very different from the NFL, where the NFL is talent on talent. Everybody knows what's going on. There's momentum shifts, but you kind of just stick to your game plan and keep rolling. But in college, it's a lot more mentally toughness that you need to be with all these momentum swings. So I was impressed to see Clemson deal with the momentum swing. We get that huge drive before half where we hit that amazing 50-yarder. BT Potter came through clutch. I mean, that was a great drive that we orchestrated right there in the 1-minute drill, basically, to at least get us some momentum going into half. And then obviously coming out of half, we had the ball. So, I mean, down 18 points with no Trevor. You lose the turnover battle at half. You only have 106 yards rushing. Our defense gives up 28 points to Boston College. What was your confidence thinking that we were going to win this game?
About 3%. It was somewhere above 0, 1, or 2%, but I remember just like looking up at the scoreboard and seeing this and just thinking, we are now forced out of our game script, right? Like, we can't run the ball at all. We do still have a freshman quarterback who has, let's be honest, like, he's been banged up the last few weeks. They held him out. He didn't get any of the game. He didn't get in the game at all against Georgia Tech. Yep. He was just banged up from the Miami game. Like, And he only found out on Thursday. He didn't have a full week of starting. I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but there's a lot of reasons without me knowing him personally, knowing his poise, to be down 18 at home. You're trying to fill in for Trevor Lawrence. Now you can't just try and run the ball. There's a lot of opportunities. I think the majority of teams would have caved in. I can't really think of many teams that would not have caved in that situation. But for us, for the defense to come out and absolutely claw their way back, DJ to continue doing his thing. He played a great game both halves, but it was low. I mean, what were you thinking at that point in time? I mean, were you like, oh yeah, we'll win, 100% confidence?
No, I was definitely nervous. I mean, really the whole first half, I was, very upset with how our defense was playing. I felt like we were playing very soft coverage. We were not closing on wide receivers very well at all. I mean, you got to give Boston College and Phil Dracovic a ton of credit, because he was airing the ball out, pinpoint shots, just finding holes in our defense. They were winning a lot of 50-50 balls in the air. You got to give them credit for that, for sure. And then I think, like I said, we came out in that 4-3. I think Brent was thinking that we'd get a lot of pressure on the quarterback with just the 4 down linemen, and we weren't getting any pressure at all. I liked it that he switched it up and went back to that 3-3-5 or 3-3-5 defense, and we definitely got a lot more pressure on the QB, which I think made his passes a little bit more errant. I think he only ended up at like 50% completion rate at the end of the game. So I was happy to see that change in defense. And really, I'm sure just Brent in the locker room at halftime challenging these guys to come out and, we have to put the game away and help the offense out. But in terms of what I was feeling at half, offensively, I mean, DJ ran that offense as well as you could have expected him to, with, like you said, with the amount of time he had to prepare. I mean, he had a couple overshots to his left that he threw high. But third down, I mean, we had 3rd and long 4 or 5 times, and he was throwing darts out there. So I wasn't worried on an offensive side. I was more worried on a defensive side. If we could make those adjustments, and if we could hold them, I wasn't thinking scoreless. I'll take scoreless, obviously, but just to limit the amount of points that they could score in the second half to give our offense that chance to get us back into the game.
Yeah, I mean, Dabo Sweeney said that the game plan did not change at all with DJ in the game. I believe it. I mean, this game did not have Trevor Lawrence, and yet the over/under was 61. We still went over, and that was without Trevor Lawrence in the game. I think DJ came in, filled in admirably, maintained it. I said in the last, the pregame talk, for our last episode, I thought Phil was going to come out and get a couple points. So that's why I guess, I think it was like 47-21 was a guess. Technically, their offense did score 21 points. The defense scored 7. So I was right on with that. Everything else was kind of a miss as far as how we thought the game was going to go. Again, next time Trevor Lawrence gets diagnosed with COVID, if he could please let us know before I shoot our episode, that'd be fantastic. Because it was right after we put it out there. We're like, well, we're not going to reshoot it now. Like, basically, the entire episode is worthless. But it was fun to go ahead and look to see how DJ was going to do in this great game, great matchup. He has to save the season. Dabo says every week, this game is the most important game of the year. If we lose this one, then Notre Dame next week loses some of its luster. So fantastic job. And again, DJ was just lighting it up this week.
Absolutely. And we've talked about it before, and we'll probably talk about it again at Clemson. It's next man up. And not only was DJ next man up, but Frank Ladson was hurt in practice. He didn't play. Nagata's still not 100%. He didn't take many snaps, if any. Obviously, Trevor's out. I mean, Frank Powell came out with 10 catches for 99 yards. I mean, a bunch of guys. E.J. Williams stepped up. It was really next man up at all positions. And then on the defensive side, Tyler Davis is still out. Skalski, who we knew was out, was going under surgery. Mike Jones was held out. Justin Foster's been out all year. And then Xavier Thomas got a targeting call in the second half, so he was held out. I mean, banged up, like you said, at all positions, and just next man up and trying to step up and do what you can for the program.
I would say pretty confidently, if you were to ask Dabo, is this the most banged up team you've had since you came here, since he took over in 2008? I don't really think it's very close. And again, adding Trevor Lawrence, I'm not going to say banged up, but just the amount of starters that you're missing on both sides of the ball. Maybe it might be just be luck at this point. It might be due to the reduced offseason, but we have the depth now, so that's helpful. But we have not seen this many injuries on a team. Normally, we avoid the injury bug because we're able to rotate our players. But the injuries, instead of them seeing them subside as the season's going on, as we're getting players to be able to rest, it seems like they're starting to stack up at this point. And again, you mentioned Xavier Thomas, not only out second half of this game, he'll be out the first half of the Notre Dame game next week. I'm really curious to see when that depth chart is released, how many of these guys are we going to have back? Are we going to have Tyler Davis back? Are we going to have Skalski back? Like, we know we're not going to have Trevor Lawrence. Who are we going to have back ready to play in good shape? Ngata is another one. Ngata was out there this week. I know he didn't have a catch. I'm not even sure he was targeted. He looks maybe 70%. He needs another week of getting healthy. And then Frank Ladson, you mentioned earlier, he tweaked, I think his, was it hamstring or groin? A hip. He tweaked. Yeah, so he tweaked his hip on Tuesday and wasn't able to go for a Saturday game. So,
you talk about injuries, and obviously we're banged up. And on the flip side, too, you talk about coaching. And I was really thinking that this was going to be a low-scoring game for Boston College because of Georgia Tech and Syracuse the weeks before, where I felt like Brent needed to go into the locker room and during practice in the week and fix some things and tweak some things to get his defense more to the standard that we're used to out of him. I know it's a young squad, a banged-up squad, but typically they're fundamentally sound in the right positions, making the right plays, not getting beat on coverages and stuff like that. And then on the offensive side, we've been talking about the O-line for a couple of weeks now. Pass blocking, they're fine. Run blocking,
great.
They can't open a hole to save their lives. I mean, I don't know. And then Tony Elliott keeps calling these runs up the middle as if something's going to change. I was not happy. I mean, that fumble should never have happened. We shouldn't have tried to run up the middle 3 different times when we've got a QB that's 6'4", 250, or 6'6", 250, I think.
Yeah, 6'6", he's huge.
And all these wide receiver weapons. I mean, there was no reason that it shouldn't be a run-pass option or some sort of pitch or something different than what we were doing 3 straight times that caused that fumble. So not super happy with Tony Elliott's playing call there either. I don't know if he was just trying to make it easy on DJ, making him not have to make too many decisions. But as this year progresses, especially this week leading up to Notre Dame, our coaches need to get some of these things tightened up.
I agree. The play call I'm fine with for that one. It's you got to go 1 yard, run up the middle, just see what happens. I get that. I would say, DJ and Travis would both take ownership of that. The handoff to Travis was high. And then if you're Travis' perspective, you have to come up here and then you're looking around. Both of them have probably a little bit of ownership in this, not to get nitpicky, but I think both of them made a mistake on that play on like the placement by DJ and then fumbling that ball. But that rushing attack, this is just the 3rd or 4th game, it seems like, in a row. We just can't run the ball. We're the 55th ranked rushing attack. We're at 166 yards a game. Last year we were over that 200 mark and we're going in the wrong direction. Each week our rushing yards are going down. We keep on hitting new lows every single week. We had 106 yards this week, and I get the game script got away from us and we had to throw the ball, and it just seems like that's where we are finding success, but I don't think we will always be finding success throwing the ball. I think we're going to have to run it. ETN this year is averaging 5.9 in carry. Like, for his career, he's 7.7 yards. Each of those first 3 years, he is above 7 yards rushing. He's just far off of that right now. These O-line, I don't care much. We talked about in the last couple of episodes, like, they're doing maybe different things schematically. They're slanting, they're blitzing the inside. Like, we have to be able to create these lanes. We're not starting 5 freshmen out there on the offensive line. Like, these are guys who have been waiting in the wings. We have Jackson Carman out there who's going to be probably a first-round pick whenever he decides to come out, on the left side, left tackle. But these guys, they're not freshmen. They're not young. They're not small. They're all over 300 pounds. I just feel like we should be able to make a bigger push when we say, like, we want to run the ball. At the end of the game, when it's 3rd and 1, we can't get the 1 yard and we have to punt it away. I just feel like there's too many situations where you have to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Especially, at this level of being a number 1 ranked team, you have to be able to run the ball. And at this point, too, it frustrates me that, 1, our O-line can't open these holes. And 2, if that's a known issue, then we need to be doing something play calling wise to be able to get these blocks off to the side or something schematically to not have to make these O-lines players open up these holes. It's got to be some sort of pitch, some read option plays to get these defensive ends, sitting for a couple seconds, something different than we just have not pulled out the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, we have, and again, the most talented defense we played against this year has been Miami. And I feel like we found success throwing the ball and running the ball. The most talented defensive line, again, was Miami. We were able to run the ball. So I'm not sure what's really changed. There must be something schematically that we're not seeing on tape that other teams are seeing and are able to attack us in that. But again, we will face a team even as soon as next week that has a talented defensive line and has talented CBs. We have not, no offense to any of the teams we faced so far, we have not had that combination. And that's the one was like, if they do press coverage and then can just stop your run with, without loading the box, what can you do? And DJ was able to run the ball. Had a great 30-yard run, but he ended the day with 25 yards rushing. So it shows you what he did, like running the ball the rest of the day. He can do that. I think he was nursing his shoulder injury too, so I don't think they wanted to use him in that way. But depending on how long DJ's there, what are we going to do with the running game to get a little more creative? Because right now, the creativity side of it is get Travis Etienne in space, but that's from a passing perspective, not from a rushing perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd like to see, watching NFL today with Kansas City, I mean, they're all about moving players and getting your eyes to go one way or another way. I mean, I would love to see for Etienne and Kobe Pace, back there in the shotgun with DJ, just to get a different look, just something where you've got some fake handoffs, misdirections, some counter plays, something. I just haven't seen it. It's been very vanilla so far from our run offense, which is also very interesting since Tony Elliott is the running backs coach. But
yeah, I agree. And again, Travis Etienne had a fantastic game on his own. Like, it doesn't look like he's injured. It doesn't look like he's dealing with anything. I don't think we're sitting here being like, oh, is his ankle or his thighs? No, he looks fantastic. Every time he has the ball in his hand, man, he's making people miss if he can get to the open field. He had, I think, a career high 240 all-purpose yards. Arguably the player of the game. You want to put him right up there with DJ. Yep. He had a fantastic game. I like that we're getting creative, getting these guys involved in other ways. It just concerns me. We've not figured out the creative way to be able to run the football, and we will need to do that at some point in time. Again, as early as next week, we may have to figure out how we're going to be doing that.
Yeah, but I mean, you talk about Travis Etienne, and I mean, he's been clutch all year. I think any Clemson fan out there is happy that he came back for his senior year. He officially eclipsed the all-time ACC rushing yardage leader in this game, which was amazing. And he did it on a great run, too. It was like a 17-yard run for a first down.
Yep.
He's now has more games with a TD than anybody in history with 42 touchdowns. And look, this game, it was a sloppy game, and we another game that we struggled to win and definitely had a bunch of heart attacks out there for Clemson fans. But it's the 10th straight time that we beat Boston College. It's our 27th consecutive win at home, and it was our largest comeback win in Death Valley since 1966. So, and I think Dabo was like 2-12 when down by double digits at half. So, I mean, a lot of statistics were against us in this one, and we found a way with heart, and we came out and we won this game.
Yeah, and throughout the course of the game, the rushing attack was the same. DJ was the same in both halves. He was fantastic in the first half, fantastic in the second half. The main difference in this game was just the tale of two halves with the defense. The defense comes out. I know we touched about it a little bit earlier, but Phil Jurkovich just torching our defense for these precision passes. The DBs are playing a little bit soft, but like the difference in this game was our defense. And so which one it will be showing up next week is going to be interesting to me. Brent Venables makes a lot of money. He's hands down the best defensive coordinator in the league.
Absolutely.
There's a couple people who are marginally close, but I really don't think it's that close. But what he was able to do to scheme for the second half, I don't necessarily want to sit here and say I think Ian Book is a much better passer than Phil Jurkovich. I think they'll have a better offensive line, maybe some better weapons. But Ian Book has not looked fantastic. So I think we'll be seeing more of that second half sort of defense from him. But again, fantastic job to Brendan Venables. I know he was heading into halftime. His guys had gotten beat up in that first half. That second half, they did a great job coming back out and really redeeming themselves. They gave up 66 yards and 0 points in the second half.
Yeah, it was incredible. Incredible.
That's astounding.
Yeah.
Absolutely astounding.
Yeah, it was incredible, and it was. I applaud Clemson's defense for coming out and stepping up and playing the way they did in the second half. And I would say, like, even scheming-wise, Brent Venables in the first half, I don't know that it was a bad scheme. It really felt like our defense just came out a little bit flat. I don't know if there was just so much pressure because Trevor was out that everyone needed to play so much better. But they were just very hesitant. They were keeping stuff in front of them but not closing hard, losing those 50-50 balls. So I think there's going to be a lot of good tape on this game as well that will help everyone kind of be able to see what happened and be able to fix it moving forward.
And again, credit to Boston College receivers. If you watch like both of those touchdown grabs, Zay Flowers over Darion Kendrick, he went up and got that ball. Like that's
incredible.
We'll call it 50-50, but fantastic job. And then the other guy, Lewis, I want to say, had like the circus catch where he thought he was going to touch the ground. He tips it back up to himself and just all of a sudden standing there in the corner end zone like, oh wait, I actually do have the football. So they did a great job in situational play, making these plays. So credit to them, but again, credit to the Clemson defense figuring out in the second half. Again, I think they did a great job in making some changes. And then again, credit to DJ. He was telling the story about how he was watching film when Dabo Swinney came in to tell him that he was going to be starting. And when Dabo came in, he had a serious look on his face. So DJ thought he was in trouble. So he's like trying to think back. Like he was saying, like, crap, did I post something wrong on social media? Like, what did I do wrong? And then he sits down and tells him like, hey, you're going to be the starter. And he's like, oh my goodness. Like, imagine just doing, like, this guy just seems like he has all the poison in the world. Imagine just like watching, the tape, you're like, oh, how can I get better? And now all of a sudden, like, Dabo leaves and you're in this room by yourself. You're like, I am now the starting quarterback for the number one team in the country. And we have a game in 2 days. What is going through your head at that moment? Oh my goodness. It's crazy. It's crazy.
And then props to him for stepping up and really playing pretty comfortably the whole game. I never felt like he had too many nerves. He played within himself and within the program and the way that it was designed. And props to him and props to Clemson for getting him prepared and ready to play that game.
Yeah, I think he took like one bad sack. I think he lost like 13 yards on it. Dabo did come out and say that the wide receiver ran the wrong route on it. So DJ was just kind of looking for the one place that was going to be open. When that didn't happen, he didn't necessarily know where to go. I think he was just kind of confused in that one moment. But that was like the one time, and that's because someone else didn't do their job all game, looking poised and controlled. I'm excited to see him next week. I'm excited to have for him to have an entire week of practice. I think they're actually back at practice today because they're off Tuesday. That was part of the college football players. If they're coming back on Tuesday, they wanted to have that day off to vote. So their practice is actually going to get changed around a little bit this week. I think they're back today in order to have practice Sunday, Monday. They'll be off on Tuesday. But yeah, definitely excited to see how he performs now with an entire week of practice. Notre Dame now has tape on him. So we'll definitely be excited to see how that goes.
Yeah, and I'm almost happy that they have this tape on him because I feel like we ran a very vanilla offense because of how much time he had to prep and just kind of getting his nerves settled down and running a lot of easy plays for him. So I'm excited to see. I'm not worried about our offense whatsoever, and excited to see him play next week with another full week of practice. Probably open up with the playbook a little bit more. Hopefully Frank and Nagata will be back. And Notre Dame, it's a marquee matchup, night game at Notre Dame. What are you thinking about that?
I am thinking about the Hurricane game that they played 5 years ago in Death Valley with Ben Boulware stopping. Was it a 2-point conversion that he stopped in the rain? Like
2-point conversion.
He tackles the guy, flips over. Listen, these are two talented teams, and then I know we've played in the college football championship game. This is just gonna be a great game. It just is through and through. I think there's some animosity on the Notre Dame side. Notre Dame knows their path to the college football playoff has to come through Clemson. I don't necessarily believe it's the other way around. I think Clemson can have a little bit of leeway if we lose a close game because we don't have Trevor Lawrence maybe, and then we were able to avenge that loss, especially in the ACC championship game. I think we have that opportunity. Notre Dame, if you can't beat Clemson without Trevor Lawrence, good luck picking out a bowl game because you will not be in the college football playoff. Do you think I'm wrong on that?
No, I think that's completely fair. Look, they beat Georgia Tech this weekend, 31-13. Ian Book looked a little bit more consistent, but a lot of his weapons are banged up. He's really just hitting the under routes. I didn't see much deep shots going on. The run game got a little bit going with Karen Williams, 15 carries, 76 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, their defense looks solid. Yep. I think it's going to be probably the best defense that Clemson's gone up against this year, and maybe will all the way until the ACC championship game and or the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how our offensive coordinator and DJ and offense responds to playing at an elite defense, especially on the road.
Yeah, I agree. That 31-13 score is not the most shocking scene. We put up 73 on Georgia Tech a few weeks ago. Georgia Tech really hasn't been doing well as of late. But it'll be an interesting game between us next week for sure. We'll do a preview on that one later on this week. Some other, I do want to talk about some other games because there were some big games in the ACC this week. Virginia upsetting UNC. That was just, I don't think much defense was played for that game in the slightest. Sam Howell threw for 443 yards passing. They never punted the ball. They had 2 costly fumbles, but the fact that you never punt the ball and then you lose, that's astounding. I don't know how you managed to do that, but UNC came in with a ton of expectations this year. We were hoping they would take that next step. I feel like they're having more of a sophomore slump sort of season, and not necessarily because of Sam Howell. Sam Howell started a little shaky, but he's been great late. That defense is missing some playmakers on that side, and a Virginia team that was 1-4 coming in. UNC should have won that game, but it was back and forth the entire game.
Yeah, and elsewhere you got Virginia Tech held on against Louisville. Miami was on a bye week. Elsewhere in the country, Ohio State played Penn State. Everyone thought that was going to be the marquee matchup. I was kind of curious to see how Penn State would come out, thinking that they might not want to start 0-2. Obviously, they didn't. And maybe it's just a testament to how good Ohio State is this year. And Justin Fields looking like he might be a front runner for the Heisman. They came out flying, and Justin Fields continues to have high passer ratings. So interesting to see them probably make their way into the playoffs. Alabama had Mississippi State. I don't know what's going on with the SEC this year. Everyone keeps talking about how the SEC is the best league in the freaking country. I don't know about that.
Here's what I think it comes down to. There are 3 teams right now that I believe are excellent. I think it's Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson. And you can switch them up. You can put Ohio State in the ACC, Clemson in the SEC, and Alabama up in the Big Ten. It doesn't matter. There's too many good recruits that are on the field with fantastic coaching on the offense and defensive side. And if you go up against a team that's wildly talented and very well coached through and through and is playing confident, knows exactly who they are, you're going to struggle. So Alabama putting up, winning 41-0 over Mississippi State. Is Mississippi State any better than UVA or Wake Forest team? Is LSU, is Auburn? We don't know much about the SEC West. I know a few years ago and even last year, these teams were great, especially when it comes to Auburn, LSU, Alabama. Oh, it's so hard going through the SEC West. I don't know. It's looking pretty easy right now. It doesn't look intimidating. The fact that Auburn, I don't know what they scored against Georgia a few weeks ago, but it looked like Bo Nix can't complete a pass, and they go out and put up 40 on LSU. Are you kidding me? But then the week before, LSU puts up, I think, 40 on South Carolina. So, SEC's doing a great job. This is something the ACC used to do. SEC's doing a great job. Hey, what new low can we set this week? Go right ahead, because they're doing a great job of doing that.
It's amazing how much a year can change things. It's amazing how much.
LSU.
Exactly.
And Boston College. So, Boston College lost to us 59-7 a year ago. Get a new quarterback, some transfers, and a new coach, and all of a sudden it's a late fourth quarter game, and we win by 5. So a year does change a lot of things.
That's true. Also kind of going back to our game, huge props to Hafley. He seems like he's really moving Boston College in the right direction. His halftime and even post-game interviews, just saying that they were playing their game and they weren't worried about Trevor, they weren't worried about Clemson, they were worried about themselves. He put his team in a place to win that game, and huge props to him, and looking forward to seeing them moving forward.
I agree, because Phil Jurkovec he's not Joe Burrow where he comes in with 1 or 2 years. He's got 3 years. He's got this year and another 2 years of eligibility. So you now have a marquee piece to build around, similar to how UNC has that Sam Howell kid. you have a great playmaker. It's not like Miami who has Erik King and you just have him for a year. You have this kid to build around for 3 years. You're going to be able to get wide receiver talent now. You're going to be able to get O-line talent that now wants to work with him, or a running back who wants to complement him. You're able to have, this is a massive recruiting win for Boston College this season as a whole. They're 4-3. If they finish above 500, make it to a bowl game and stuff, but that is a team that very quickly I think will be on the up and up. A year ago, I think that would have been incredible to think about, but now what they could be 2 years from now is pretty scary.
Yeah. And hey, next week, Notre Dame, Battle of the Unbeatens, marquee matchup, nighttime on ABC, 7:30 kick. Looking forward to discussing pregame later this week. We'll upload a video on our thoughts on that game. If you liked our content here, like, subscribe, help us out.
Absolutely. Smash that subscribe and like button. Help share us around a little bit. If you guys love Clemson football, we're always here to talk more about it. Again, the pregame show that we're doing for the Clemson Notre Dame game is going to be Wednesday or Thursday. We always like to keep it fresh around here. So y'all have a great rest of your week. Enjoy it. Stay safe. And we'll catch up with you in a few days, y'all.
Go Tigers.